Hi there. Now, did you go through some previous year CAT question papers and while going through RC came across some questions that stumped you, flummoxed you, confused you? Then this is the session for you. In this session, I am going to take you through all those RC questions, reading comprehension questions that have been asked from the CAT 2021 to CAT 2023 that were most confusing. And I'm going to tell you what exactly they mean and how you should go ahead and approach them. Now, you may ask that how did you figure out whether a particular question type is confusing or not? Well, very simple. Every year, thousands of my students go on to write the exam and then they later on get back to me and discuss these things. I have picked up those questions that have been asked the most often. Plus, every year, I also coach thousands of people. I mean, that's what we do at iQuanta, right? And whenever our students start going through the previous year questions, they suddenly look at some of those questions and they're like, here is a question and I don't even know how to answer this. They are absolutely thoroughly flummoxed about them and they report those to me. So this is a compilation of those questions. If you're already a student of mine, I have taken you through these things in my classes. But in case you missed out on that class or you haven't had this opportunity to work with me so far, this is your chance. So I welcome you to iQuanta's YouTube channel that is dedicated to your success. My name is Vikrant. I'm your personal coach for all things related to VA, RC, communication skills, psychological aspects of the preparation. And this session is all about some of the most confusing questions that have been asked in the CAT exam in the last 3 years, along with how you should go ahead and answer them. So let's get cracking. Let's start and have a look at it. So if you ask me for the most frequently asked thing from the previous year questions, the recent ones, then I would undoubtedly point out towards this one singular word, except. Tons and tons of people have asked this from me. And let me tell you in this particular session that whenever you see except, think of it as a not. So remove the except and introduce the not at the core of the question. Or in case your question already has a no or a not somewhere, you can remove it. And then there is this one more thing that gets asked very frequently after except. Let's go through the except questions, and once we have gone through these, I will go ahead and talk about it. So ready? So here is your question number 1 on the screen right now. So every question stem has been taken from some slot of the last 3 years of the CAT exam. So I have not tinkered with them. I have not changed them so that you get the absolute authentic experience. So let's read it. According to this book review, A Thirst for Empire says that in addition to profit motivated marketers, tea drinking was promoted in Britain by all of the following except. So I told you that think of except as not. So what is the operative part here? Tea drinking was promoted by all of the following except. So promoted is the core. Let's put this not right here. So in this particular question, you are supposed to look for an answer choice that says that, hey, tea drinking was not promoted in Britain by one of the following. So of course, because you are supposed to choose only one answer choice, this all automatically goes on to become 1. Or let's try it out in this particular question too. All of the following statements can be inferred from the passage except that. So I remove this. If I ask you for the question type, it's what? An inference based question, right? So that's the core. Let's put in the not here. So all of the following statements, so once again that all automatically would become 1. So one of the following statements cannot be inferred from the passage. So the one that cannot be inferred will go on and become your answer. Or let's try it out with one more so that you are able to cement the idea. So all of the following arguments are made in the passage except that. So one of the following arguments is not made in the passage, and the one that is not made is the one that you are looking for. Okay, or here is another one. You can actually pause and do it yourself and then play again for my answer. So the question says the author lists all of the following as reasons for the decline or disappearance of a language except. So the author has not listed, just fixing the grammar, you can do this if you want to. The author has not listed one of the following as reasons for the decline or disappearance of a language. So I'm just negating it. I'm just converting these into not. But there are times when you receive questions like this. So what do you see here? Now this is a question where you already have none. Now can I say informally that none is nothing but not one? So except already means not. If I remove it, I insert a not. But if your question stem already has a not, you can use this except to cancel that out. So the author would support one of the following statements about political power. So the one that the author supports is the one that is going to be your answer. Here is another one of the same variety. So none of the following statements is implied by the arguments of the passage except. So this except and the not of none gets cancelled out. So the question is, one of the following statements is implied by the arguments of the passage. So you notice, barely takes you 2 seconds and make the entire process a lot simpler for you. Okay. Here is another variety where the not is not this obvious, but let's have a look at it. The author of the passage is likely to disagree with all of the following statements except. Now you realize disagree basically means not agree. So this except and this not gets cancelled out. All of course becomes one. So the author of the passage is likely to agree with one of the following statements. And the one that he is going to agree with, well, that is going to be your answer. Okay. Then let me talk about a couple of other question types that people have asked me about fairly frequently, though not as frequently as they asked about except. So probably because this is a question type that bothered a lot of people. So here is that question on your screen. So which one of the following sets of words is closest to mapping the main arguments of the passage? Or if they not ask you to map the main argument of the passage, they can simply ask you to choose the set of keywords for the passage, right? So both of these question varieties are basically main idea questions, and sorry, these question types essentially depend on your ability to generate a solid overview of the passage. So that is why I so very often in my classes, of course, I make it mandatory for people to go through that. But even in YouTube videos where you have worked with me in this on this particular channel, you noticed I insist on your creating a mental overview of the message, where I've actually talked about the fact that when you read a passage, you need to have the overview of the passage in your mind. And one of the things that I teach within that overview is that, hey, when you read a paragraph, you need to have the key idea of the paragraph in your mind. So in case you are somebody who's doing it, you will find it easy. In case you're somebody who hasn't started doing it yet, well, today is as good a day as any other. Why don't you start today? Whenever you read a passage, pause and consciously think of the key idea of every paragraph. And once you have the key idea of every paragraph, I think these are two question types that you will find ridiculously easy. Okay, so they just depend on that ability. Now, apart from that, there are a couple of reasoning based questions that have been asked with greater frequency from the last 3 years paper. Let's have a look at question number 10. Which one of the following, if true about the classic Maya, would invalidate the purpose of the iPhone example in the passage. So I think it's more a combination of comprehension and reasoning. Why? So this question actually involves two steps. Step number one, you need to have the clarity of the purpose. So whenever the author introduces an example, what is going to be the purpose behind it? So let's isolate it for a little while and ask ourselves, whenever we offer an example, why do we offer it? So you realize an example is given for one of these two reasons. You can give an example because you want to elaborate upon something or explain something, and the example helps you bring in that necessary clarity. But then we may also use examples to support our point of view. So on the whole, the purpose of an example is to explain an idea, a point, or to support an idea or a point. So the first step in such questions is to think of, okay, what is the idea that this example was designed to support? And then the next step is, which of the following would invalidate that purpose? So how do you invalidate an example? If you are somehow able to prove that this example is not a suitable example to explain this idea or support this idea because it has something crucial missing from it, or maybe there are some dissimilarities here, then that basically will tell us that this example is not justified. So the moment you do this, the moment you combine these two things together and then proceed to your answer choices, I think you'd find the going a lot easier. And similarly, this is another question type, and that is, the author of this book review is least likely to support the view that. So let's think in terms of what is it that the author will support. Author will support something which is consistent with the arguments presented in the passage. So anything that can be termed true on the basis of the passage. Now, how do you label something as true? Well, something can turn out to be true because it is mentioned in the passage. There is some specific detail that clearly point towards the fact that this is true. Or it may not be mentioned, but then this is something that you can infer from the passage. You can conclude from the passage. So maybe there is a detail, some fact, or there are some premises on the basis of which you can label something as true. So in such questions, please treat them as inference questions / specific detail questions, where your job is to go to every answer choice and label it as true, false, or can't say. Now, if there is an option which is false, then that's going to be the best answer. In case there is no answer choice that is false, then you would almost invariably see that 3 of them are going to be true, 1 of them will be can't say, in which case you go ahead and choose the can't say as your answer. Now there is a third scenario as well, but that's very rare, so let's skip it. 2 weeks before the exam, I think if you can go ahead a week before the exam, if you can go through this, even that is going to be terrific. And similarly, there was this one question type that stumped some of the people. I am still going to talk about the second most asked thing in a little while from now, but there is a particular question that a lot of people brought to me, and they said that, oh, I got this wrong because in my haste, I did not interpret it correctly. And here is that specific question. Now, normally when you see it can be inferred from the passage, you know that you're looking for something that can be concluded, but look at what it does next. It can be inferred from the passage that the author is not likely to support. So although it says inferred, if you combine these two things, it is basically which of the following cannot be inferred from the passage. So the one which is not true is the one that you are supposed to go ahead and mark as your answer. And similarly, there is one more question type that a lot of people did ask me about at the end of the exam, at the end of the year when that exam was conducted, and that was this. Where the question said, which one of the following, if true, would best complement the passage's findings. So what exactly is it that complements? So anything that complements is anything that goes on to support. So treat it as a reasoning question where you are supposed to roll out the things that you've learned while dealing with this strengthening the argument question type. Roll out that plan and you'd go ahead and get this right. Similarly, there is another one-off question that stumped a lot of people, and here is that question. Let's go ahead and discuss it in case it appears again. So which one of the following statements, if true, would be the most direct extension of the arguments in the passage? Now, what do we understand by extension? Now, I have participated in a fair bit of debate in my school and college days. So in debate, an extension of an argument is the act of briefly restating the argument along with telling why it is true, or it can also go ahead and refer to adding new material to the debate that goes on to bolster your argument even further. So if you see this question type in the exam, you are once again looking for an answer choice that can go ahead and support the main idea that the argument has essentially left you with. So in a way, strengthening the argument question, the only key thing to remember is that you are supposed to focus on strengthening the main idea and not a specific part of the passage. And with that, all this pollution is making my voice a little hoarse. With that, let me now go ahead and talk about the next most asked question type after except. These were questions that went ahead and introduced this scary little word for a lot of people, and that was false. Which one of the following scenarios, if false? So a lot of people, when they solved these questions, they went to every answer choice, converted it into its opposite, then kept that opposite in their mind, and then saw whether that opposite goes on to support the passage or not. And that process led to inefficiencies. That process led to more mistakes. So here is my pro tip for you. False is nothing but not true, right? So when you need to change every answer choice into its opposite and then keep it in your mind, the probability of mistake is higher. Do not convert it into opposite. So since false is not true, let's drag this not and put it elsewhere. So I'll put it here. So now what does it become? Which one of the following scenarios, if true, could be seen as not supporting the passage? So now you no longer need to convert the answer choices into its opposites. You just read it as it is and ask, hey, does it support? Does it strengthen? If it strengthens, it is not your answer. On the other hand, if it does not strengthen, right, it could be irrelevant, it may weaken, then it is going to be your answer to this particular question. Or here is another one of the exact same variety. So check this out. So once again, what do? False is not true. So which one of the following statements, if true, could be seen as not contradicting the facts or arguments? So this time around, read an answer choice and ask, hey, does it contradict the fact or the argument in the passage? That's about it. So if it does contradict, it is not your answer because you are looking for something that is not contradicting. And the question type that perhaps bothered the most of the people was a question which combined if false with our earlier enemy, and that was except. Now, if you solve it using the approach that I'm sharing with you, you'd probably find it the easiest of the lot. So here is a question of that variety. So how do we do it? False is not true. Except and not get cancelled. So one of the following statements, if true, could be seen as being in accordance with the passage. So something that is in accordance with the passage is something that can be inferred on the basis of the passage. So that's all that you needed to do. It was just a good old simple inference based question which was asked in a roundabout convoluted manner, and as a result it ended up troubling a lot of people. But now that you've watched this, it is not something that is going to trouble you anymore. So time for a quick quiz. I am going to give you 3 question stems from the last year's exam. I expect you to pause, simplify it the way we have talked about them in this particular class, and once you are done with these 3 question steps, I am sure you'd be ready to take on any question that the examiner throws at you. So here is your quiz question 1. Pause the video, answer it, and then come back. Okay, so here is my take. Except, remove this, put not here. So if I simplify it, one of the following statements, if true, would weaken this particular aspect or this particular conclusion. That's it. And you know how we weaken? We go ahead and question the premises or the assumptions. So as long as you've worked on those things, those skills, I know that you're going to be absolute solid hands. Quiz question 2. Pause the video, fix it, simplify it, and then come back. Okay, so false is not true, and accept and not get cancelled out. So one of the following inferences from the passage is true. So that's what we are looking for. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? That's about it. And here is the last one for you. Pause, answer, and then come back. So except goes, there is no or not available. So let's introduce it. So which of the following would not weaken? And that is what you are going to look for. So that's basically it. Now that you've gone through all these things, you are ready to take on all the confusing question types. Before you sign out of the video, don't forget to like it. And here is something that I want to leave you with. Please remember that all the limitations that you have are self-imposed. So you are unlimited. You have infinite potential. So just go out, write that exam, and make a dent in the universe. So that's it from me today in this particular session. All the best for your exam. I hope to see you before that at least once. But just in case we do not, good luck. I'll see you on the other side.